So we have a streamer with a screen, bass management, and EQ for $329. Oh, and maybe some of the best and most updated software of any streaming company to date. I really feel like nothing is coming close at this price point. If you don't like it, that's fine, but why? Really, why though? Let me know below. I'd like to hear your thoughts and possibly the direction you're leaning instead of the Ultra. Is it a particular feature or just a totally different ecosystem that's attracting you? What's going to be really interesting is I think this is one of those products that branches across several price points. I can see this being paired with budget desktop size amps, high-end amps, and even integrated into home theater receivers to bring in the streaming capabilities to the often lackluster performance that is offered on the standard home theater receivers today. I've been in contact with WiiM and should be getting in a pre-release unit for testing and review, so everything today is a bit of speculation, but nonetheless, the cat is out of the bag at this point, so we can analyze some of the specs here. As for the screen, it's on the smaller side at 3.5 inches, and we do have to question just how usable it'll be at any type of distance. But nonetheless, it at least appears to be a nice little touchscreen that'll be really nice to have at a desk or in a smaller space. In my living room, I'm not going to be able to see much on that screen, but if I use it at my office, at my desk, or even in a separate side room I have, it should easily be visible. A lot of people look at the screen and think track info and artwork. But another important point is just the ease of operating the settings menus when you don't have your phone on hand. Also, it sounds like they plan to bring in a spectrum analyzer and VU meter, so that'll please a lot of people as well. Do other brands have bigger screens? Yes, several of them do, but they also cost multitudes more in almost every case. Not really a surprise, but this one comes with a remote. I'm going to go out on a limb and just guessing it's the same remote we see that is compatible with all the other WiiM products. If so, that's fine. It's nothing too fancy, but it gets the job done. And it's a step ahead of some of the little credit card remotes that come with some of the other brands around this price. And really, all I need here is power, volume, and track controls. This one has a few extras like one-touch access to playlists as well. I would say that this is going to be a really important one for a lot of people. It looks like we have a much improved DAC section, the ESS 9038 Sabre DAC. This is a major step up. It's not quite the latest and greatest, but this is a very competent DAC and will please nearly everyone. I'm sure others will have different thoughts, and that's fine. Nailing down a specific DAC for everyone is like winning the lottery. At least all the anti-ESS crowd is covered too. It does have an optical and coax out, so you can bring in the DAC of your choosing into the chain if you need to be difficult. Room correction is finally rolling out to these WiiM products, which I'm not even really sure why I'm saying finally. No one at this price is offering it. You're going to need to use your phone's microphone to take acoustic measurements of your room. Then it'll do the work from there, deploying corrections for the speakers as well as the subs. I am curious if we get some support for aftermarket mics as well. I know Buchart actually moved away from the iPhones for accuracy and they sell a separate mic. At this point, the phone mic is likely the safest bet though, since it is more tailored to simple integration rather than high dollar setups, I'd say. Surprisingly on this one, when they were trying to get all this in here for this price, they included a phono stage. There's certainly been a rise in vinyl over the years, but I have a feeling this will be one of the least utilized features. But nonetheless, it supports MM cartridges with 41 dB of gain, as well as MC carts with 59 dB. I have turntables with each, so I'll give it a run once I get it in. They were certainly going after everyone on this one, trying to cater to the masses. I can't really think of many features this one is missing, outside of maybe balanced connections for pairing it to an amplifier. I almost forgot the headphone amplifier as well. It's working with a TPA 6120A2, which isn't going to be state-of-the-art, but it's going to be what I would consider good enough for most headphones, excluding anything difficult to drive. If you own said difficult to drive headphones, you likely already know this. This isn't the only new product on the way either. There's already a WiiM Pro coming as well. It's going to have the same look as the previous generation, with a few updates they learned along the way. Just to skim the details on this one, some of the changes are an improved DAC, also going with a 9038 like the Ultra, Wi-Fi 6E, which was nice to see since I have 6E at my house, but it feels like very few electronics have taken advantage of it. Beyond that, the amplifier looks to be outputting the same wattage, but has been improved with the addition of PFFB. Basically taming the far end of the frequency response that was either boosted or nulled depending on the speaker pairing on the non-PFFB version. Beyond that, they mentioned cosmetic upgrades to the knobs, LEDs, and casework, as well as a redesigned internal circuit. They don't give any details on that part, so it's not quite clear what was optimized there. I sort of wish this release included a dedicated power amp to pair with the Ultra. You could do something like the new WiiM Pro, but it's going to double up on a lot of the features, so I think most will likely lean elsewhere. I have a feeling a lot of these are going to be paired up with the Fosi V3 monos. The price is right and gets you a pretty complete system for a really reasonable price. I think both of these products check a lot of boxes for people looking for either a budget-friendly preamp streamer or a dedicated all-in-one. And that's without bringing in the people who are shopping for a soundbar replacement, who will definitely be shopping these as well. I'm going to link the Crutchfield pre-order on these in my description. It costs you nothing extra to use my link, but does help to support the channel to get in new gear and filming equipment. No biggie either way, but always appreciate your support if you're shopping it anyways. Now let's step away to a quick ad break, then onto a fun-fi device from Knobsound, the A3 integrated amplifier. It's got a lot going on, not all wins, but it's interesting and priced right. Data security breaches are about as common as our favorite streaming services raising prices. So basically all the time, unless you're Tidal with the recent price drop. Good on them. Scrolling the news, you're going to find endless examples of big and small corporations losing our personal info to the dark web. A recent example of data security for myself lately is text messages claiming I have a UPS package on hold due to missing shipment information. I do actually get a lot of shipments in with this channel, but you know what? It's highly unlikely UPS is trying to reach me at bigjohn123@hotmail.com. Just a guess. Just be safe out there, be careful what you click on. With today's sponsor, Southern New Hampshire University, and their online cybersecurity program, you're going to have the opportunity to learn to defend against cyber attacks and protect an organization's data. Just a few notes on the program. During the program, you'll learn about network, application, and incident security, as well as investigation protocols. You get hands-on experience in cyber labs and have the opportunity to participate in the National Cyber League competitions. SNHU's cybersecurity program has been designated as a National Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity by the NSA. And of course, you'll be taught by faculty with real-world experience. One of the few opportunities to connect with people within the industry. Not often you get that. Like I mentioned, I work in IT, and I personally believe there isn't a better time to start a career in cybersecurity. We hear about it all the time in my profession. Right now, the expected growth rate is 32% by 2032. So even if you're not interested, possibly school years are behind you, pass the word to your kids or even grandkids on a field that looks very promising in the future. Go to https://snhu.edu/Matt Kuykendall, also linked in my description, to see if you qualify for the program today. You might be eligible for financial aid or even have previous credits that could fast track your degree. Click the link to get started. Now back to the video. Getting to the A3, this is a tube-based pre with an AB amp, so essentially a hybrid. You won't get the full tube effect with this configuration, but it does get you partway there, and for those interested in budget tubes, it could be a starting point either for the first-time audiophile or really just anyone interested in tubes. The tubes are readily available online. It comes with two 6P16As as well as 13P1P tubes. The rear tubes do get quite hot, so the tube guards are not for show here, so just be careful with that if you have this placed anywhere that kids may be able to reach it. Sometimes that artificial tube light that they do on these draws the wrong person in. Generally, it's a one-time mistake though. Speaking on that, it's certainly not a natural look with these LEDs on the tubes, but it's actually executed pretty well and gives this little amp more flair to go alongside that VU. I really felt like this one looks pretty good. It weighs a lot, has enough features for most. Loads of inputs on this one for the price point. 2 RCAs labeled DVD and CD, but obviously you can bring anything analog into here. More on that in a moment, as it plays an important part of my review. We also get an optical and coax input. Outputs, you can see that sub out right above it, and then the typical speaker out binding posts. No giant power brick to carry around with this one. It's integrated, so that might be important for someone looking to streamline their setup. I mentioned the RCA inputs being important here because during my review, I found that the internal DAC was a bit lacking on the A3. So what I would suggest for best performance here is just bypass that altogether and bring in your tunes through one of the usual suspects from WiiM. You're going to get a better and cleaner DAC performance. The one integrated in the A3 is 16-bit 48Hz limited, which honestly isn't the end of the world, but it's also just not as clean and dynamic sound in comparison to using the DAC within the WiiM Pro Plus. Power is also going to seem a bit low in comparison to many of the new Class D designs, coming in around 35 watts per channel. It does a fair job and can easily power most bookshelves to louder than necessary volumes, but don't really expect to bring these into a large room and pair it with anything inefficient because you might be met with a bit of disappointment there. I would suggest this one as small room or office safe. It's easily going to fill the room like that without any limitations. That's for my 2-channel listeners who will more than likely push this a bit more on the volume front. If you're simply looking to integrate this into your TV over the optical input, that type of use, and you're not expecting THX listening volumes, it's going to be fine just to bring this in to a bigger space for simple TV duties and even modest 2-channel listening. Looking at the front here, nothing too out of the ordinary. They really try to pull at your heartstrings, throwing that VU meter front and center. It works fine, but could actually be better served with a sensitivity knob. It's the opposite of what I encountered on the Fozzy VU switch recently that took crazy loud volumes for it to even move. This one's great for casual listening, plenty active, but you turn this one up too loud and it basically just lives in the red. But honestly, the red might just be telling the truth here. It actually sounds really good for casual listening up to moderate levels, maybe even loud for some. But if you try to push this one too far, the distortion starts to peek through. But at the same time, I'm talking about really loud listening levels beyond what I would expect from this one at its price and power capabilities. Beyond that, on the front, we have the input selection, a power button on the front, which is appreciated, rather than having to give every amp the reach around to turn them on and off. What's with that on so many designs lately? There is a headphones output, which is a nice convenience to have if it's at your desk, but it's pretty bare bones. It's going to power everyday basics, but anything requiring external amplification is going to struggle a bit here. Outside of that, we have a couple of track controls if you're bringing in your external library over the USB, or I suppose the Bluetooth input. Big volume knob, and I can report that the channel balance was actually really good even at whisper volumes, which is something I always like to check because so many devices struggle to get an accurate balance between channels when you just barely crack the volume on. It's generally not a big deal. It always resolves itself if you just bump the volume up a little bit. But if you're going to have this at your desk, it's likely that you'll occasionally have this at really light volumes. And to wrap this up, this one works fine. As for what's in the box with this one, you get a gloss white remote that covers all the basics you need: volume, input, track controls, as well as a power cord and a manual. You can get this one for $169.99 on Amazon right now, so you could certainly do worse. It's a fun little tube amp that has enough features that I could see it filling the needs for a new audiophile or someone looking for something with a little bit of flair for a casual, non-critical listening space. As for the pros with this one, there are multiple RCA inputs. Not a lot of them offer this under $200. The look and construction is actually pretty nice for this price. It's more than I would expect at $169 for sure. Easily accessible tubes if you ever need a replacement, although in most cases I would expect these will last around the life of the product. And a remote. The B100 from Duke was actually another amp really similar to this one, but it was kind of frustrating that there was no remote. Glad to have it here. The sound performance is my last pro, and it's going to appear under both of these. The sound is good enough for the price. It's what I would consider good but not great, up to moderately loud use. Casual listening to moderate volumes should bring plenty of fidelity for most users. As for the cons, let's hit that sound performance right away. It's good up to modest, but can fall short in a large space. Don't try to fill a stadium here, but that should be obvious at this price as well. There's also a very slight hum coming from the amp. It's almost inaudible unless I put my ear within a foot of it. Just want to cover anything that you might encounter on this. The internal DAC is also a bit lackluster, but can easily be worked around if you have an additional streamer like WiiM. I would also say a VU sensitivity knob would be appreciated here, just to customize it more so how you plan to use it. The last one I'm going to bring up isn't a con, but this could use some updates. I would likely change the RCA input names from CD and DVD to input 1 and 2, just to clean things up a bit. That's all for today. Just a bit of fun-fi for those interested in some of the budget offerings. If you could, please comment down below. That interaction helps to push these videos out to a much wider group. And of course, a like and subscribe is always appreciated as well. Take care, everyone. We'll talk soon. Later.